My family begged me to save their hotel. I sold my apartment, quit my job, and rescued it in 8 months. But they made my basement dwelling brother CEO. Then I discovered he stole $95K and left them bankrupt while I built my own empire. I'm 34 years old. I've been working in hospitality since I was 19, and what happened with my family a couple of years ago basically broke me into pieces. Although now, looking back, I think it was the best thing that could have happened to me. I know it sounds weird to say that, but you'll understand why. The thing is, I sold my apartment in Portland, quit an amazing job where I was making good money, and moved back to my hometown to save the family business that was falling apart. Worked like crazy for 8 months to turn it around. And in the end, my parents gave the CEO position to my younger brother, who had no idea how to run a hotel. Literally no idea. And when I say I worked like crazy, I'm not exaggerating. I'm talking about 16 hours a day, 7 days a week, sacrificing everything I had built in Portland. I guess I should start at the beginning. I mean, with how I came to make that decision to go back. My family has this lodge-style hotel in a small town. You know, one of those with wood beams and a big fireplace in the lobby, very cozy but also very outdated. My parents bought it like 25 years ago when Logan and I were kids, and for a long time they did well. Or at least that's what I thought because I never really got into the financial details. I left for Portland when I was 22, studied hotel management, worked at several big hotels, climbed the ranks, and by the time I was 32, I was general manager of a super successful boutique hotel in downtown Portland. I had my life figured out. A nice apartment, good salary. I was even dating someone at the time. Logan, on the other hand, well, Logan was always different. He's 28 now, so like 6 years younger than me, and he never finished college. He started like 3 different majors and dropped them all. He lived in my parents' basement, worked part-time at the hotel, doing basically nothing important, like carrying luggage or being at the front desk occasionally, but most of the time he just played video, games, or hung out with his friends. My parents were always super indulgent with him. I don't know why. I guess because he's the youngest and because I was always the one who figured things out on my own. So, like, I didn't need as much attention. It was frustrating sometimes to see how they spoiled him, but I was doing my own thing in Portland, so it didn't affect me that much. Everything changed when my dad called me one night. I think it was in February last year, like 10 at night, and he said, "Cameron, we need to talk." His voice sounded weird, like tired and stressed, and I immediately knew something bad was happening. He told me the hotel was in serious financial trouble, that they had taken out loans they couldn't pay, that reservations were dropping, that the place needed urgent renovations but they didn't have money, and that basically they were months away from having to close or file for bankruptcy. I stayed quiet for a moment, processing all that, and then I asked him why he hadn't told me anything before, and he just said he didn't want to worry me, that they thought they could solve it themselves. Honestly, it made me kind of angry that they waited until the last minute to tell me, but it's my family, you know? It's the business my parents built, where I spent my childhood. My mom got on the phone after and basically begged me to come home to help them. She told me I was the only one who really knew how to run a hotel, that they trusted me, that without me they were going to lose everything. And me standing there in my Portland apartment with my perfect life, thinking about whether I really wanted to do this. I talked to my partner at the time, who told me to do what felt right but to understand it was a huge decision. I spent like a week, not sleeping well, running numbers, thinking about the options, and in the end I decided yes, I was going to help them. Because they're my family and because, honestly, a part of me always dreamed of running the family, the hotel someday. I just thought it would be under better circumstances. So I sold my apartment, which was painful because I had only bought it 2 years before, and it was my first property. I quit my job, which was even more painful because my boss offered me a raise to stay, and because I was in line for a regional promotion. My relationship ended because my partner didn't want to move to a small town, which I understand. I can't blame them for that. And I moved back home in March, with all my stuff in a moving truck, feeling like I was going backwards in my life, but also with this determination to save the family business. The first few days when I arrived and saw the actual state of the hotel, honestly, I wanted to die. It was worse than my parents had told me. The reservation system was literally a paper logbook. They had no online presence beyond a horrible website from the 2000s. The rooms needed urgent renovation. The staff was unmotivated because they hadn't gotten raises in years. The cleaning was mediocre. The breakfast they offered was sad. Like, I understand why reservations were dropping. I wouldn't stay there in those conditions either. But well, I came to fix this, so let's get to work. The first thing I did was sit down with my parents and the accountant to understand exactly what the financial situation was. They had like $180,000 in debt between bank loans and unpaid suppliers. Reservations were at less than 40% occupancy, and they were losing money every month. We needed an aggressive and fast plan. I talked to the bank, renegotiated the loan terms, got an additional line of credit promising that I was going to manage operations and that I had proven experience. It wasn't easy to convince them. I had to present a complete business plan with projections and everything, but eventually they agreed. With that money and being super careful with every dollar, I started the renovations. We renovated 12 rooms first, the most important ones, with new furniture, good mattresses, updated bathrooms, fresh paint. I hired a local designer who charged me little to help him build his portfolio, and they turned out beautiful, like rustic modern, which is super popular now. I installed a modern hotel management system connected with all the online booking platforms like Booking and Expedia. I hired someone to handle social media and digital marketing. I trained the staff in real customer service, not just the minimum. I improved the breakfast so it would be something people talked about positively in reviews. Every detail mattered. During those 8 months, I'm not exaggerating, I worked from 6 in the morning until 10 at night every day. I was at the front desk. I was supervising cleaning. I was doing maintenance if necessary. I was answering emails at midnight. I was creating promotional packages. I was calling previous customers to tell them we had improved. It was exhausting. Literally felt like my body was going to collapse some days. But it was working. Reservations started going up. Slowly at first, and then faster. Online reviews improved from 3.2 stars to 4.6 stars on TripAdvisor. We started having customers who came back. By November, we were at 78% occupancy, which is incredible for a small hotel in a small town in the off-season. Logan, during all this time, basically did nothing useful. My parents had given him the title of assistant manager, but that was just a name, because he arrived late, left early, didn't understand any of the new systems I had implemented, and when he tried to help, he generally caused more problems. Like one time he tried to handle a check-in and charged a customer wrong and we had to refund and apologize. Or when he was supposed to supervise a furniture delivery and completely forgot and they left them in the rain. But my parents never said anything serious to him. They always defended him. And I tried not to get angry because I was focused on the bigger goal of saving the business. Patricia, the head of housekeeping who had been working at the hotel for like 15 years, once told me, "Cameron, you do all the heavy lifting and your brother takes credit with your parents. Doesn't that bother you?" And I told her it didn't matter, that what mattered was that the hotel survived, that there would be time for those conversations later. But honestly, it did bother me. I just didn't want to admit it. I saw how my parents told Logan he was doing a great job when he literally did nothing, and me there destroying myself physically and mentally without even a thank you most of the time. In December, my parents called a meeting with all the staff. I thought it was going to be to celebrate the year's results, to thank the team for the effort, to talk about plans for the next year. The hotel had gone from being almost bankrupt to being profitable again. We had paid like $60,000 in debts. We had advance reservations for the high season. I was proud, tired but proud, thinking that finally my parents were going to publicly recognize everything I had done. The meeting started normal, my parents thanking everyone, talking about the good numbers, about the bright future of the hotel. And then my dad said they had an important announcement to make, that they had decided to restructure management. And I thought, okay, this is where they officially name me general manager or something. But no. My dad said that Logan was going to be the new CEO of the hotel, that they felt it was the perfect time for him to take the reins, that they trusted his vision for the future, and that I was going to report to him as operations manager. I froze. Literally felt like my brain stopped working for a few seconds. I looked at Logan, and he was smiling like an idiot. Clearly knew about this before, and my parents were there like they had announced the most normal thing in the world. I looked at the rest of the team, and everyone looked uncomfortable. Especially Patricia, who was looking at me with pity. Sarah from the front desk had her mouth open. No one could believe what they were hearing. I raised my hand and said, "Sorry, can I talk to you and Mom in private?" And we went to the office and I exploded. I told them, "Are you serious? Logan's CEO? The same Logan who can't arrive on time, who doesn't know how to use even the reservation system, who never finished college, who has no real experience in hospitality. The Logan who was playing video games while I was breaking my back saving this place?" And my mom told me not to be so hard on my brother, that everyone has to start somewhere, that Logan had been learning a lot these months. I yelled at her that Logan hadn't learned anything, that I had done everything, absolutely everything, that I sold my apartment, left my life, my career, my relationship, worked like a slave for 8 months, and that this was their way of thanking me. My dad told me to calm down, that I'm going to continue being an important part of the hotel, that I was going to have a good salary as operations manager, that I shouldn't take it personally. I told him how could I not take it personally, that it was completely personal, that this was a betrayal. My mom started crying and said we always did this, that we always fought about Logan, that why couldn't I just support my brother? And me there thinking, am I in an alternate reality or what? Do you really not see how unfair this is? I left that office and went straight to my room, which was my old teenage room in my parents' house because obviously I didn't have an apartment anymore. I threw myself on the bed and started thinking about everything. About how I had sacrificed everything to save their business. About how it was never enough. About how I was always going to be second after Logan no matter what I did. And I made a decision in that moment. I decided I wasn't going to stay there to watch Logan destroy everything I had built, because I knew that's what was going to happen. During the next few weeks, Logan started making changes and each one was worse than the last. The first thing he did was eliminate the complimentary breakfast for guests, because according to him, we were giving away food, and that cost too much. I explained to him that breakfast was one of the things most mentioned in positive reviews, that it was part of the experience, that guests expected it. But he insisted, said if they wanted breakfast, they should pay extra. Complaints started immediately. Reviews went down. Then he decided there was too much staff and costs needed to be cut, so he fired Patricia, the head of housekeeping who had been there 15 years and who was the soul of the team. He fired her without notice, just told her her services were no longer needed. Patricia came to talk to me crying, asked me if I knew. I told her I had no idea, that Logan didn't consult me on anything. I told her I was so sorry, that it was an injustice, that she deserved better. Patricia hugged me and told me she knew this wasn't my fault, that I had tried to do the right thing. The hotel started deteriorating fast. Logan didn't supervise cleaning well now that Patricia wasn't there. Rooms weren't in good condition. He arrived at the hotel like at noon, left at 4 in the afternoon, and when he was there, he spent time in the office on his computer doing who knows what. Reservations started dropping again because bad reviews were piling up. The staff was demoralized. And my parents did nothing. Kept defending Logan, saying he was learning, to give him time. I meanwhile was managing what I could, trying to minimize the damage, but it was impossible because Logan constantly made decisions without consulting me, and I had to deal with the consequences. I felt trapped, frustrated, furious. And one night, driving through town after a particularly horrible day, I saw an old building with a for sale sign. It was a 2-story building that had been an inn many years ago but had been closed for years. Something in my brain clicked. I parked and just stared at that building. It was in bad shape. Windows were broken, paint was peeling, but it had a good location. It was in the center of town near restaurants and shops. And I thought, what if instead of continuing to fight a losing battle at my parents' hotel, I did my own thing? I had some money still saved from selling my apartment. I had the experience. I had the contacts. It was a crazy idea. Super risky. But the more I thought about it, the more sense it made. The next day, I called the number on the sign. The owner was an older man who wanted like $280,000 for the building. It was a lot, but not impossible. I made an offer of $240,000 with a down payment of $50,000 and the rest financed. After negotiating for a couple weeks, he accepted. I went to the bank, the same bank that had helped with my parents' hotel, and presented a business plan for my own boutique hotel. The bank manager knew me, had seen how I saved the family hotel, and approved the loan. In January, I closed on the building purchase. I didn't tell my parents or Logan anything until I signed the papers. When I finally told them, I thought they were going to understand, that they were going to see they left me no choice. But no. My dad told me it was a betrayal, that how could I compete against the family business, that I was being selfish. My mom said I was destroying the family. Logan laughed and said I was never going to succeed without them, that the family hotel had the reputation and the clients. I told them that I had saved their hotel, that they decided to give everything to Logan without considering my sacrifices, and that I had the right to build my own future. The conversation ended with yelling and door slamming. I officially quit the family hotel that week. Some of the staff reached out to me after. Sarah from the front desk asked me if I was going to need employees at my new place. I told her yes. Patricia also contacted me, told me if I needed someone with cleaning experience, she was available. I hired both of them immediately. They were the first to believe in my project, and that meant a lot. The next months were insane. I worked with contractors to completely renovate the building, designed every detail personally, from colors to furniture. I wanted it to be modern but cozy, boutique but accessible. I named it Elevate because that's what I wanted to do. Elevate the hospitality standard in town, elevate myself after what had happened. I invested every penny I had, slept like 4 hours a night, but this time it was different because it was mine. I was building something for me, not for people who didn't value me. In May, I opened Elevate with 18 beautiful rooms, an incredible lobby with a coffee bar, modern technology throughout, and a small but committed team. The first weeks were slow, obviously, because nobody knew me yet, but I started doing aggressive marketing on social media, offered opening discounts, invited travel bloggers to stay for free in exchange for reviews, and it worked. Reviews started coming in, and they were excellent. People noticed the difference in quality, the attention to detail, the personalized service. By July, I was at 65% occupancy, which was incredible for a new hotel. By September, I was at 85%. People in town started talking about Elevate as the new cool place to stay. Meanwhile, my parents' hotel kept falling. Logan had made more disastrous changes, had raised prices thinking it would increase revenue, but only drove away more customers. The place looked neglected. The remaining staff was poorly trained. Online reviews were terrible. Occupancy was at less than 30%. In October, my mom called me. Her voice sounded desperate. She told me they needed help, that the hotel was in serious trouble again, that debts were piling up, that they didn't know what to do. She asked me if I could come back to help them, if I could fix things again. And I'm not going to lie, felt a kind of dark satisfaction hearing that. It wasn't that I wanted them to fail, but after everything that had happened, it was validation that I had been right all along. I told her no, that I had my own business to take care of, that they made their decision when they put Logan in charge. My mom started crying, saying I had always been so resentful, that family should support each other. I told her that I supported them, that I sacrificed everything to support them, and that they betrayed me, that now they had to live with the consequences of their decisions. I hung up feeling bad but also firm in my position. A couple weeks later, Sarah came to my office with a weird look on her face. She told me she had to tell me something about my parents' hotel, that a friend of hers who still worked there had sent her concerning information. Turns out, Logan had been making strange payments, invoices that didn't add up, expenses that didn't make sense. Sarah thought something shady was going on and that I should investigate. At first, I didn't want to get involved, it wasn't my problem. But I also thought about my parents, that despite everything that happened, they're my parents, and I didn't want them to be scammed. So I asked Sarah to get me copies of what her friend had seen. When I reviewed the documents, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Logan had been creating fake invoices, payments to suppliers that didn't exist, supposedly for services and materials that were never delivered. The money was going to accounts that, when I investigated a bit more, traced back to him. Logan was literally stealing from our parents' business. Adding it all up, it was like $95,000 over the last 6 months. $95,000. It wasn't just incompetence, it was direct fraud. And I also found casino receipts. Expensive. Purchases, evidence that he was living beyond his means. He had even opened an offshore account, because of course, he wasn't smart enough to hide his tracks well. I gathered all the evidence, organized it in a folder, and went to my parents' house. I told them we needed to talk, that it was urgent. My dad was annoyed, didn't want to see me after I had abandoned the family, according to him. But I insisted. I sat down with them in the living room, the same living room where I had played as a kid, where we had family dinners, where everything had gone to hell, and I showed them everything. At first, they didn't want to believe me. My mom said I was making things up because I was jealous of Logan, that how could I accuse my own brother of something like that? But the evidence was irrefutable. Invoices with fake supplier numbers, bank transfers, account statements that proved everything. My dad went pale, took the papers with trembling hands, reviewed them over and over. I told them I needed to confront Logan, that they needed to call a lawyer, that this was serious. Logan arrived at the house like an hour later. My parents had called him. When he saw I was there with all the papers, he immediately knew what was happening. He tried to deny everything at first, said I was lying, that I manipulated the documents. But my dad put the invoices in his face and yelled at him. "Explain this then, explain these payments, explain the missing money." And Logan crumbled. He started stuttering excuses, that he had debts, that he needed the money, that he was going to pay it back, that he made a mistake. My mom was crying hysterically. My dad was in complete shock. And me sitting there feeling a mix of vindication and sadness. Vindication because they finally saw who Logan really was, and sadness because my family was destroyed, because the business I had fought so hard for was ruined, not just by incompetence but by crime. My parents didn't want to call the police immediately, because he's their son, you know, and I understand that even though I didn't agree. But they did call their lawyer and accountant. Logan had to resign as CEO, obviously, and an internal investigation of the whole financial disaster began. The bank froze the hotel's accounts until everything was cleared up. Logan moved out of my parents' house. I think he went to live with a friend, and basically stopped existing for us. My parents' hotel eventually had no choice but to close. Between the old debts, the money Logan stole, the ruined reputation, and the ongoing legal investigation, there was no way to save it this time. My parents sold the property to a hotel chain for less than it was worth, just to be able to pay some debts. It was sad to see that place close after so many years, after everything it meant to them, but it was also the consequence of their decisions. My mom called me after everything was finalized. She asked me for forgiveness, told me I was right, that they should have listened to me, that she regretted how they treated me. My dad also apologized, though it was harder for him to admit he was wrong. I told them I forgave them, because they're my parents and because holding grudges wasn't going to do me any good, but that things were never going to be the same, that they had broken something in our relationship that couldn't be completely repaired. Now, 2 years later, Elevate is better than ever. I expanded to 24 rooms, hired more staff, won TripAdvisor awards, have regular customers who come back every year. My parents basically retired. They live off their Social Security and some savings they had left. I see them on holidays. We try to maintain some kind of relationship, but it's tense and probably always will be. Logan disappeared. I think he moved to another city. I don't know what he does now, and honestly, I don't want to know. My parents don't talk about him. It's like they erased that part of their life. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if my parents had named me CEO from the beginning, if they had valued my work and sacrifice, if they hadn't been so blind with Logan. Probably the family hotel would still be open and successful. Probably my relationship with them would be normal. Probably many things would be different. But I also think that maybe I needed all that to happen, to realize my own value, to have the strength to build something of my own, to not depend on validation from people who clearly didn't value me. Last week, a couple stayed at Elevate, and when they checked out, they told me it was the best hotel they had stayed at in years, that everything was perfect, that they were going to recommend us to all their friends. And me there thinking, this is mine, I built this, nobody can take it away from me, and that's enough for now, I guess.